Hello, 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 fellow humans.
Well, welcome to the Rise of Humanness Podcast, where we explore what it means to stay human in a world increasingly run by algorithms, bots, and machines. I'm Mike Schindler.
And I'm Chris Nolan.
And together, we're going to show you how to stay absolutely powerful.
Stay human.
And rise and thrive in the age of AI.
Yes, and even show you how to beat the bots. Well, let's rise.
The rise of humanness in the age of AI. It's a podcast with Chris and Mike. The rise of humanness in the age of AI. Stay curious, stay human, let's rise.
There he is.
Gary.
Good morning, Gary.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
We're doing
great.
great.
Where are you at? Let me look. It looks like DC.
DC today, huh? Crazy town.
Crazy town. We moved here exactly a year ago. I don't know what came over us, but may you live in interesting times. Where are you guys?
You're in Scottsdale, right? I'm in
Scottsdale. Yeah, no.
Now, we're not in DC, though. You're somewhere around DC, right?
No. We're in DC.
In DC?
We're right in the center. We're not the center. We're across from the zoo. We're in what's called Woodley Park.
Oh,
And,
when he said across from the zoo,
Mike's in the zoo.
that's right. No, there's another zoo. It's a little farther downtown.
Yeah, no kidding.
They typically wear suits and ties. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my cousins grew up in Phoenix, so I spent a lot of time there in the Scottsdale.
Oh yeah. I love Scottsdale. I love getting into the different mountain ranges and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I love the weather. So
Beautiful place.
studios and
Except you haven't been there, Mike. You haven't been there in the summer.
Well, I was here. I was down in Green Valley though.
When we went that we worked with Gary. We worked with USAA. Which is also in Scottsdale, and I think it was 119 in the shade.
Yeah, it was a little warm. It was a little warm that day. Yeah.
My cousin used to work at Sky Harbor in Phoenix, and when I hit 119, he'd get a day off because there's a lot of planes that cannot take off, and they can't get lift at that temperature.
A lot of people
he was the
that
one
can take off too.
But he was the guy that fueled the plane. So they would just say, "Hey, don't come in today. Nobody's going anywhere."
I like that. So that's the future of work in the climate world.
I hear there's a climate change thing. We don't believe it here in DC, but I hear the rest of the world climate change. So, so how did you guys start doing this podcast? How did you guys come together, and how did all that happen?
Well, we did a documentary, and because I'm a director, and Mike is turned out to be a wonderful actor. Wanted to be an actor. He has a military podcast and a military nonprofit, and we did some work, I think, for the nonprofit before that, or maybe I did it with another nonprofit.
We did.
Starbucks.
Yeah.
It was during COVID, and we kind of realized that we were in this world of chaos. And I had worked with Google and UCLA Anderson School of Business on a set of courses. And in that course, I learned that the guy who was the head of transformation, a guy named David Peterson, had taught Google to really leap out of the technological bubble that they were in. They'd have to embrace VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity.
Yeah.
And he did that. And then we went from a modest search engine to acquiring YouTube, taking over the internet, all of search, basically becoming the backbone of the internet. And that was and then the Google X project with Schindler, all of that came out of that. And what this kind of heavenly glow happening here.
I know you do. You're pretty.
So it just seems like you're coming from another region. So that's
no. I don't know what's going on here. It's like
there's a light
happening with my.
It's like sunlight bouncing.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
we have to. I might have to do so. Well, let me do that later. So let me finish this up. So Mike didn't know about VUCA, and it's a military term. So we got all these 4-star generals. He went out and got General Casey involved. And we got 17 thought leaders. That's when we met Stephen Kotler and all kinds of great people. We did this documentary. It was a big deal. And from that point in time, Gary, when people say, okay, that's what we're going through, we get it. It's VUCA, and there's a positive side to VUCA too. What do we do about it?
Yeah.
And then that led us into this age of AI and then the rise of humanness and all this kind of stuff. And we said, we just have to get out there and have this discussion with people because there's all these gaps. People always have these kind of high level thoughts about what we need to do. And in a way, we're pushing people to say, okay, the great idea. How does that work when AI has an IQ of 5,000?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And it's been really fun. So Mike, you could chime in. You could chime in while I fix this little problem.
Yeah, we've great guests on the show, including.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So I saw some of the list. It's really wonderful people. So at the same time, Chris was helping David. It was focusing on the transformation stuff. Around 2005, I got a call from this little company that had just gone public, and they wanted to build a strategic event or something that would get people to come to the Google campus, and they didn't know what it was. So my wife and I, who were consulting partners together, we ended up helping them come up with an idea called Zeitgeist, which is their most strategic conference. And we launched that in 2005. They credit us as co-founders. And so many of the people, Chris, from that early time in the company, we were working and collaborating with to get, really big names to come to the Google campus. As a matter of fact, because nobody knew who Google was, I sent out the invitations on Google letterhead under my name because I used to run magazines and my wife used to work in Hollywood. And so we ended up in
Hollywood.
She worked for Sony Pictures. She was international marketing before there was international marketing.
I know Sony Pictures really well. My good friend, Dennis Dugan, directed most of the Adam Sandler movies.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So I know it pretty well.
Yeah. So they're only focused, more on the sort of marketing and distribution side, but worked a lot with production and, all during sort of the golden age of international when international was a rounding era.
Sony was great international. I mean, they were one of the champions. I know this sounds crazy. They were really big in Russia. They had kind of like crazy connections.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. She would explain to me why they were popular because they had such a huge library in different countries and what was popular. And and they built that whole cosmology now that sort of laid the groundwork for a lot of the future production. So,
my other good friend, Bill Diamond, who was the showrunner for Murphy Brown.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Because, sitcoms have kind of faded away in the U.S. He has made a living, Gary, for the past, I think, 10 years, repackaging sitcoms for Russia. He's always out of plane to Moscow, and he goes, wow, they want to repackage Everybody Loves Raymond, Everybody Loves Serge.
Well, that's such a good sitcom, too.
Everybody loves Serge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Serge. Yeah. Or The Office.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. We have some really good friends that are futurists and other people. We're talking, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but if you would like to talk about something that Mike and I are working on that does have to do, Mike, with the future of work.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. It is the biggest problem because we've all been in corporations, and I ran a unit that, it's going to sound crazy, it was about between 80 to 2,000 people. And
hey, Chris, that's in your name. Chris, that's in your frame.
Yeah, we can still see that.
Oh, I need a gaffer. Look at that heavenly light there.
I just go with it. Yeah,
I know. Mike, am I?
No, you look good.
Am I evolving?
Oh, that's better.
Is this the rise of humanness?
No.
You Bye, everyone.
You had it there. Yeah.
There you go.
It's just at the edge.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Later. We should get going, right?
Yeah, we got to get going because we got a hard stop again. But
you got a hard stop.
About 45 minutes.
Yeah,
and sometimes we stick to the script and sometimes we don't. So we're just here
Rarely
to
stick to the script, but we'll try sometime.
and we'll have fun doing it. So,
All right.
let's go, Chris.
Lead on.
All right. Hello, fellow humans and eavesdropping bots. I'm Chris Nolan.
And I'm Mike Schindler, your instructors from Captain Kirk University, where we teach these advanced courses in boldly venturing into the future.
Yes, welcome back to the Rise of Humanness show, where we explore what it means to stay human in an increasingly automated, uncertain world.
Yeah, so guys, be sure that you share this episode. Be sure that you subscribe, share this with your friends, share it with your non-friends. We are
You don't care, we're not picky.
Yeah.
Just give us a sub. There you go. All right, so today we've got someone who literally wrote the book on the future of work. How about that? Basically, he knows what's up when it comes to jobs, skills, and not letting the bots steal our jobs or our souls.
Yeah, so guys, get ready. Just get ready for some, I think what are going to be some really cool aha moments, Chris.
Absolutely.
I think we're going to uncover some technology that has always impacted the work. We're going to look at how organizations are transforming the workplace, what's going on in the dynamics of community, what that even means anymore, and more importantly, what this really means for your career path.
Yes, what's next? The rules of work. We're thrilled to have with us Mr. Gary Bowles. Gary is the author of The Next Rules of Work and the chair for the future of work at Singularity University. He's also a global speaker, has 1.4 million LinkedIn learners, and is a partner in Charette LLC. Did I say that right?
Yes, absolutely.
And co-founder of eParachute.com, Mike, which you discovered.
Oh, is that, what color is your parachute? Is that?
That was my father.
No
So
kidding.
it's a company that he and I started together before he passed away 7 years ago.
No kidding. I read that.
Mike's color, it's black with a skull. He's former military. Well, is it blue? Because it's military. Because you're
True.
right.
Yeah. Depends upon if you're a
Gary, welcome to the show.
jumper.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. We're looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. So, okay, Gary. So we've been going back and forth a little bit, pinging back and forth on LinkedIn, where you said that we've had like some pretty weird terms out there as far as like horrendous terms creeping into the vocabulary, the AI workforce, the AI companions, AI co-workers. So are we on the cusp of losing the narrative on what makes us human?
So absolutely. I firmly believe that. I think, I'm a student of history. Technology has always disrupted work, throughout history. Mm-hmm. And to give some really good examples, but the basic premise is new technology comes along and it sort of does some of the tasks that humans do. And then there's a lot of futurists who will say, oh, well, here's the way it's going to go, is it's going to just completely wipe out human work. And, this is something that people have been predicting for hundreds of years and hasn't happened yet. But what it does is it definitely disrupts work. And then along comes this new thing marketing term called AI, this basket of technologies that we sort of lump together and allow tech companies to be able to say, oh, it's an AI. There's no such thing as an AI. It just doesn't exist. Can't touch it. It's not, it doesn't have a box around it. It's just a bunch of computer algorithms, right? And so what ends up happening is, though, over and over again, when these disruptive technologies come along, I was actually the co-founder of a magazine called Interactive Week, the internet's first newspaper in 1995. And the whole premise, a lot of the marketing messaging is, it's going to change and all the jobs are going to go. Well, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the 30 years since the internet really took off, not all the jobs went away.
No.
Jobs went away during a pandemic. They went away during a recession, but it's that the jobs changed and it was the pace and the scale of change. How many people were affected and how fast it happened that determined whether or not people could make that transition. Well, along comes this basket of technologies called AI. And a lot of the tech companies are saying, oh, well, it's your AI employee, it's your AI coworker. Well, I mean, that is just BS. It does not fulfill those roles. However, they can do a lot of tasks. Human work is just human skills applied to tasks to solve problems. Yeah. Right? Skills, tasks, problems.
Yeah.
So because AI software performs a lot of tasks, humans then decide, oh, do all those tasks mean a job can get destroyed and I can, fire somebody. Humans are making those decisions, not software. And so this is what we really need to do, is to change the narrative. You change the narrative from it's your AI coworker, your AI employee, to these are tools. And these are tools that can empower you. And if we convince Silicon Valley to change the mindset from this replacement and task automation stuff to empowering humans, then you get this whole new future of work.
Yeah, I do love the empowerment piece. That's what Chris and I talk about all the time. We think that AI could certainly pull more out of humans, right? I mean, put us back into the creative.
They have to be willing to
well, they've got to be willing, of course.
That's the key.
I mean, they've got to move out of being a robot, which I think most humans have been robots, to be honest with you, into being creative again. But Gary, we're seeing this in the marketplace. To your point, we're seeing CEOs letting workforce go. We're seeing companies shed, employees saying, "Hey, I can have the bots do this." So what are some of the steps that people can take to survive this AI job apocalypse?
So I used to have this conversation with my father all the time to say, okay, there's really two things. And he was focused with this, what color is your parachute book. He was focused on helping humans to just get better at career planning, career change, job search, and those sorts of things. And I used to say, Dad, that's wonderful. We got to do that. And I've got a bunch of ideas about how, especially we use AI to do that and help to empower humans. But you also have to change the system, because you can make the best human worker powered by AI. And if employers don't want to hire that person, well, they have to go start their own company or they're not going to get a job. And so what ends up happening is you got to change both. So the way to do it for each of us as individuals, what can we do? What do we have the agency for?
Yeah.
Is to think of yourself as being a constantly growing and changing human being. And you have to find the things that you're passionate for. I call that your North Star or your Southern Cross. Like, what is it that pulls you forward? And AI can help you with that. There's an increasing number of chatbots. There's a whole bunch of different sort of career, tools that you can use to explore. What am I good at? What are my skills? What are the things that fascinate me? What are the paths to get there? So that's how you empower you. And if you think of yourself as constantly growing and changing, you get that North Star, that Southern Cross that pulls you forward, then now you're ready. And then we also have to change the system. If you hire people, if you are the CEO of a big corporation and you've got all this pressure that's coming from your shareholders, like, hey, you've got to cut jobs. You got to be, they've got to be more productive.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah. Oh, no, that never happens, right?
No.
So let's just say that the average corporation has a huge amount of pressure from their shareholders and other stakeholders. And so what you need to do is you need to figure out, well, wait a minute. If I do all of that, that's sort of the zero-sum mindset. And then I come up with a need for a new product, like a new kind of customer, new market I want to go into. Who's going to do that? I just laid off all the people. Yeah. AI is not going to do that. AI is not going to perform all those tasks. So if I instead look at all the people I've got today and I think, how can I empower them? How can I superpower them? How can I be so much better at superpowering than my competitors are? That's the company that's going to win.
Well, wait, Chris, I want to build on that for just a second.
Sure.
So Gary, you're saying it's a top down, but if I'm an employee, let's say I'm an employee, right? And I'm seeing that, companies are shedding, like I have no influence over whether the CEO keeps me or not. What do I do as an employee to survive this? I mean, what do I do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay. So a couple things. So first off, think of yourself as this constantly changing and growing person and always be thinking of what's next, right? So I overuse the word next. It's in, the Next Rules of Work is my book, and I use in my newsletter.
What's next, and then what's next after that, and then what's next after that.
So the more you are continually having the agency and thinking about what's next for the next step for you inside the organization? What's the next step if you need to go beyond the organization? It doesn't catch you unawares. You're always preparing. That doesn't mean that you're constantly looking for a job when you've got a job, but it does mean you are keeping aware of your options and you are learning. You are changing. Now, what ends up happening is it's really important for people who are thinking about this sort of reset that happens in employers. First off, those layoffs that you're talking about are mostly in tech, except here in DC, you might have heard there's one or two federal employees that are at risk. But the general premise is that a lot of the companies that are laying off are tech companies. Why? Tech companies have data, and they have this construct of low performers, which is just the BS term. And they have this whole mindset that, oh, no, people are the robots you were talking about, Michael. And if they're not robotic enough, they're not productive enough, like a robot, then, we're going to term them, right? So, but it turns out that the net employment in any country, and especially in the US, does not come from those big companies. New employment is created by companies that have been around for less than 5 years. That's where all the net new employment in the country comes from.
That's a good stat.
So you have to keep on looking, not just at the big companies where you might think it's safe today and then tomorrow they're doing layoffs, but also be looking at smaller, newer companies, because that's where the new net employment is created. That's where there's problems to be solved people haven't even figured out yet, and need to be able to have people to come in and help them determine what is that problem, what's the customer need, and how do I solve the problem for that organization.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that leads into this next area that I love. And I think you should explain a little of the history of this, because I think it's one of your greatest premises. So it's this idea about the unbundling of work. And, in a world, the future of work, which is increasingly run by AI, that's actually an advantage, because, it will empower humans, as you've been saying, to not have to have as big an organization, because we're unbundling it. So paint a picture then of what jobs look like in 2030 with this unbundling, and also explain how you came to that kind of that industrial revolution idea. So paint a picture of what jobs look like in 2030.
Absolutely. So first off, there will be jobs in 2030. There will be traditional jobs.
That's good.
Yeah. About 60% of all the work in the United States really doesn't have anything to do with information. Your plumber is not dependent on AI for the most part. And there will be tools to support them, but you still need a plumber. And we're going to have a shortage of plumbers and electricians easily.
Humanness says 20 billion robots on this.
We'll talk about the robots in just a second. So let's focus first on what jobs can look like. All right. So the construct of a job, as we think about it, is actually relatively recent. The whole idea that you had a place you went to and it was stable and you were doing, so there's limited number of tasks and that really came from factories. The Industrial Revolution, in the mid 1800s, about 70% of all the economic activity in the United States was agriculture. You either worked on a farm or distributed farm, agriculture. And then we had to shift to this industrial economy, and then, scale, right? Oh, how do you have scale? People have little niche jobs and you have a hierarchy, and so all of these constructs, the way we think about the organization today, basically was created around that time. Although things like hierarchy actually go back to Alexander the Great. So there are some holdovers, vestiges of the way that humans have organized themselves for thousands of years that we're still baking into the modern corporation. But let's just wave our magic wand and let's say, no, let's take advantage of all this stuff. Let's take advantage of everybody having agency and having a North Star, Southern Cross. Let's take advantage of these artificial intelligence and other technologies that allow us to be able to be very adaptive and to be able to solve new problems. So what could an organization look like? So I'd say the future is not a workforce and it's not a network, but it's a work net. It's a network of humans that are all working together. And some of them might have 100% membership in an organization. You can think of it as a degree of membership. I'm an employee. I get to do all my work just for Big Corp, and that's all I do. However, I might do 80% of my work for Big Corp and 20% for other projects. I might do 20% for Big Corp and 80% for other projects. And if the organization becomes this much more flexible infrastructure that allows us to be able to channel a flow of human capital, so people can be solving problems, coming together dynamically as teams, binding around problems, solving the problems, and then going on to the next project. You look at inspirational examples like the work platform Upwork. Upwork actually has 2,000 people that work for them. 2,000 people work for them. 80% of them are contractors on the Upwork platform. Some of them have worked for them for 20 years. And so what that is it's a bundle of projects. It's a bundle of problems to be solved, and then a bundle of people. When you unbundle the organization, Now there's this whole range of new opportunities. If you can manage that flexibility, that flow of human talent, help them to match up to the kinds of work that they can do. And if you empower people to go find the kinds of problems that they can solve.
And Mike, let me just want to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Let me see if I've got this right, because I really love this idea. So the way that I read it originally was that at one time there were craftsmen and they did the whole project, right? Then as they tried to scale it, they turned people into the cogs that made that car or whatever it was, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or one, you just did the legs on the chair. You didn't do the whole chair.
Exactly. But before you make the
again.
whole chair. So what I thought was brilliant about your observation was that in the future, we're flipping that script back so that, if you have AI and maybe someday you have 3D printing or whatever, you're actually able to do most of the whole project. You don't need to be a cog anymore. You're flipping it back to being almost like the craftsman. Movie industry is a good example.
Yes.
I need
Absolutely.
100 people, 120 people on a crew.
Yeah.
With AI, I might just become a craftsman where it's me and 3 people.
Yeah.
I know that's not perfect for some people, but that is the model that's ahead.
So if you think of,
because I was it a little bit differently, Gary, in the sense that Chris, when he was talking about upward, that kind of reminded me of the gig economy, where you got somebody that's,
That's a little different. That's the network thing. I'm actually talking about the macro concept of the idea of the unbundling of work. I mean, the idea of unbundling work is that it allows more hands-on ability than, like you said, Mike, turning people into robots.
Yeah.
But both of those things that you're talking about, both the things that each of you is talking about are actually connected, right? So if you just have a traditional job, what you've done is you have bundled together, I said there's 6 different aspects, and it just so happens they're really easy to remember. It's the 6 W's: what, where, when, how, who, and why, right? So if you just think about your job in those contexts, like the job you have today, what do you do for work? When do you do the work? Where do you do the work? Which is what flexible and remote work is all about, and so on. We think of all those as a bundle of functions where you have sort of repetitive tasks or problems that you need to solve. When you unbundle that, you all become gig workers, right? Because what ends up happening is you have a bunch of different skills and you can apply them to a range of different problems. And if even in a traditional organization, they make the matching up of people and the problems to solve much more flexible. There are companies, big companies nowadays, that have project marketplaces, literally project marketplaces inside the company where employees can put up their hand and say, wait a minute, that team needs to solve a problem I know how to solve. And so long as your manager changes their mindset and doesn't think of you as a wholly owned subsidiary and instead says, well, no, your skills should actually be available to anybody in the organization. You can have the same flexibility inside of an organization. You can have a gig economy inside an organization without even changing the process by which you bring in employees. It's just how you manage you have them to manage their skills inside.
Thank you, Gary, for connecting the dots for Mike and I.
But that's
what I'm here for.
Really interesting, because I've actually run my nonprofit that way.
Okay.
Which is really interesting, where I hire for positions, but everybody can flex. Like somebody can go, no, I want to lean into that because I have the skills or the talent to do that. And it's almost like the Coast Guard model of cross training, where almost everybody in the organization can, they can float even though they have a specific title.
So when Google hires for certain jobs, what they do is, so for instance, if you're going to be a coder or in marketing, you actually are hired for a profile, and then you often date around. You have to go to at least 2 or 3 different work groups and work with them for a little while until you find the match. So, Mike, that's exactly what you're talking about, is the whole mindset that, wait a minute, there's a problem over here I can solve. Let me go check that out. And what you're constantly looking for is the ways that's a really good matchup. Think of it as a Venn diagram of your skills and the problems to be solved.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, how many companies are actually doing that? I mean, I've been in a lot, and I don't even say they're big names, and I will say this. they do have pilot programs to do that. They do dabble in it, you know.
But it is milestones, territories.
Yes. And then usually if it flops, they all point the finger at each other and said it was your idea.
Yeah. Not my problem. So here's the thing. Is the reason that many organizations are trying this, and there's also sort of a complementary part of it, which is called skills-based hiring.
Yeah.
So the more you forget degrees, and there's the point at which I need to insert. I don't have enough college to stuff into a symbol, right? So no degree, So when I talk about the future of education, the future of learning, you can decide that I have zero moral authority or complete moral authority. But the basic premise with skills-based hiring is, throughout the degree, let's just look at their skills. What ends up happening is IBM, for instance, 2 years ago, announced that more than 50% of their open jobs wouldn't require a degree. You know how many people actually got hired without a degree? 8%.
Yeah.
And so what is it? You know what the linchpin is in any organization is the person formerly known as the manager. So what I focus on in my book is I say, look, you need a completely different mindset. You guys know I've got 10 courses on LinkedIn Learning. It's now 1.6 million learners.
Amazing.
People just keep taking them. And I've updated a number of them for the age of AI. But one of them is it's called Skills for Leading the Future of Work. And what I try to do is say, look, that linchpin of the person who leads a team, we have to completely change the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set that they use. That's my construct over and over again. Mindset.
Oh, there goes one of our
questions. And tool set. Okay, great. So with the person who leads a team, I don't even use the word manager or supervisor. There's a wonderful book focused on education called Moonshots in Education, written by my great friend, Esther Wojcicki. And she says the teacher, the model of the teacher, which also comes from the industrial era, used to be the sage on the stage, the one with all the answers. And what she says is, no. Need to become the guide on the side,
like
the
a
one
mentor.
with the best questions, like a coach, like a mentor. And so I say the same thing for the manager and supervisor. I call it the team guide. And what you're doing is you are trying to help empower the mindset and the skill set of your team. You're trying to give them the tool set that they need.
Exactly.
And that's why you don't get the more flexible work environment that we've been talking about, is the manager defaults back to what's safe. Hiring is just a risk management process. That's all that hiring is. If you knew for absolute certainty the next person to walk through your door was the perfect hire, you'd hire them. But humans don't have that kind of certainty. We have to manage risk, right? Because who's going to be called when you made a bad hire, right? You've got the guy with the Harvard background, and you've got the other person with a skills-based hire, didn't go to Harvard, and either one of them fails. Oh, the Harvard guy, that was a safe decision. How do we know he was going to fail? The other one fails. Oh no, you're the one who made it. And so we have to change that mindset of the person who leads a team. They've got to become team guides who are about empowering the workers. And that changes the mindset about, they're not wholly owned subsidiaries. They're people that you are trying to help contribute their skills to create value for the organization.
But that's also that the employee has to have that. I mean, I started in ad agencies. I was a creative director. And that's creative. So you're dealing with young people that, are coming up with ideas for marketing campaigns. And the weird thing is that so there's a lot of dynamics in this. They either think you're going to do their job for them because you start to mentor them, and they go, oh, he just has all these ideas.
Go with it. Just go with it.
Just go with his ideas. You go, no, that's not what I want to do here. You want to go with some of your ideas, but that's because people don't, because that's not out there enough. People are managers and they're creative director. There's not enough training, I don't think, in the idea of mentorship or employees understanding how to be mentored.
Correct. Absolutely. It has to work both ways, right? So one of the challenges I'm often asked to talk about by CEOs of companies is, well, exactly what you said. It's like, especially if you've got young people and they're either in creative roles or they want to be in creative roles. And when you were doing that in the agency, I give you tremendous credit for being able to herd those cats, because it is a cat herding process. But it's even more challenging nowadays for one major reason. And that's that young people have something we didn't have when we were younger, which is optionality.
Yeah.
They have far more options. They don't like their boss on day one and they quit on day two because their friend is doing a startup or their friend says, hey, people are hiring over here. And so what that gives is this mindset that, hey, you know what? If this is a great company for me to be at, if these are great people for me to be working with, awesome. I'm going to stick around. But you know what? If it doesn't look great, I'm not going to stick around.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you can decide if you are somebody who leads in an organization or you somebody who's a team guide, you can decide, is that bad for me because they could walk away, after one argument, or is it good for me because what I get is a new charge. I have to actually make it really interesting and engaging work. I have to be a great leader of a team. I have to help them to be able to see how their skills can solve these problems. I think it's actually opportunity. I don't think it's a problem. Yeah. I think it's actually more and more of an opportunity for organizations that can create those engaging work environments so they'll stay.
Oh, well, yeah. Or it's your toxicity threshold. How toxic culture take?
Well, I think that's going to have to go away. And I think what Gary, what you're talking about is, as owners of companies or managers or executive level, we've really got to be talking about purposeful presence. Like, we've got to be talking about the moonshots. We've got to be identifying people that are like, hey, listen, here's the moonshot. Let's see if there's alignment in here, so that we align purpose and instead of just skills. Because I think, we talk about AI, this age of AI, where knowledge is going to be democratized, right? So you could take the person that is not the smartest person in the room, give them AI, and suddenly they have all the information that I would have, even if I had advanced degrees. But now they have that at their fingertips.
You had an IQ of 1,000.
I mean, everybody's got the IQ of 1,000 now if they can use a keyboard. So I think it's going to come down to purpose, and we don't talk enough about purpose. I think
Is that a Y in the W's?
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, yeah,
that's a Y. That's it.
Right?
That's the Y.
So is there maybe Simon Sinek was onto something? Start with why, right? I mean,
depends on the person. So what we find is some of this goes back to my father's work, but yeah, purpose was, he had this thing called the flower, 7 aspects, and the center was always purpose. And so, I don't always lead with why though, because what ends up happening is everybody's got different motivations. If you just graduated college, you're married, you've got a kid, got a mortgage, your why is making money. That's it. You got to pay the rent. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? No. Your why of your parents or your grandparents was feeding their family and putting a roof over their heads.
Right.
That was their why. That was the purpose of work, right? And what we find is for a lot of people that are going through career decision making is sometimes what they get the message is that purpose is a capital P and it's why I'm here on the planet. And to some people, that's a bridge too far. Like, that's too much work. So then some people want it to be a little P, like, what's my purpose in this job? Or what's the purpose of the organization? Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. And some people, even that is toxic, and all they want is meaning, right? They just want to feel like the work has some kind of meaning, and that can be feeding your family and putting a roof over your head. But you're right, Mike, in that in the ideal world, what you want is to infect people with the purpose of the organization. Why are we here? What's the value we're creating in the world? Yeah. And the more that they can sign up for that, you also use the A word, which is the alignment. I've got behind me on the wall what I call the strategic arrow: vision, mission, strategy. These are the lead parts of why in an organization. What's your vision for the future? What's the mission of the organization to deliver on that vision? What's our strategy so we can execute that vision and mission? And if the more you get anybody throughout the organization to sign up for that and see how their work contributes to it, now you've created that social cohesion.
This is one of the best explanations I've heard about purpose, Mike, because Mo Gadot, who's great, who was talking about purpose, he was saying, where's it written that your purpose is your job? Your purpose in life is not your job.
Yeah.
The journey, it's a hero's journey that has a much higher mission. And the way you articulate it, which I love, which is the capital P, which is your purpose, your big purpose, why you're here, spiritually, maybe, if you're spiritual. Yeah. And then the lower P is I shuffle papers and I take orders from the guy on top,
That's so interesting, Chris, because I've always described purpose like, in the military, we kind of have, purpose is assigned, right? When you join the military, but when you leave, I kind of viewed purpose as like, it's kind of 4 P's. You've got your spiritual purpose, right? So you've got your spiritual purpose, whatever that is for, however you align that. You've got your social purpose, which some people interpret as job, right? You've got your relational purpose, which is your network. How are you giving to others? How are people giving to you? And then you've got your sacrificial purpose, which is what are you doing for others that they can never pay you back to do? So I think if we look at purpose, and we look at our life, we go, well, how do I fill in these 4 areas of my purpose? Right. And maybe that's complete purpose. I don't know. Maybe that's
is there an individual purpose, Mike? Because, there is
that's your spiritual side.
Kind of the Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, where you have fear and you have limitations. You can't, you have a comfort zone. You can't go out in the unknown. You play the small game.
Yeah.
You play the big game. And your life really is telling you, hey, you're too emotionally dependent on other people. You need to take more responsibility or we're into smallness, and that's not what life is about. It's about expanding. It's about evolving. It's about elevating yourself. So that's the purpose. And that's not always accomplished just with work and be relationships.
I agree.
Absolutely. So what we find a lot of times is that we're all on a journey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it's a hero's journey or it's just the life journey, we're all on a journey. And there's certain things that we know are inevitable, right? We're all going to transform. So I've actually, Singularity University asked me to sort of expand my remit from not just the future of work, but now I'm a global fellow for transformation. So I talk a lot about like the whole transformative thing. We always transform. We go from little bitty humans to big humans, right? So
I love that.
Inevitably, you're going to transform, not going to stop, right? And then, what do we want that journey to be if we all, as society, are all trying to figure out, like trying to hack this process and making sure that it's beneficial, right? So you just gave 4 great anchors for the reasons for that journey, Michael. And I would add, what do we also want? We want people to be great citizens.
Yeah.
We want them to be great parents or at the very least to be good, supporters of younger people, right? We want them in some way to contribute to an economy would be useful. Not everybody, but a lot of people have to, contribute to economies. And if that's what we're really designing for, then at inflection points in our lives, as we transform, as we grow, at certain points, we're going to have to make decisions about, well, where does that purpose show up? And there are some people that are ready early on. They've been exposed that I want to focus on spiritual purpose. Like I'm going off to an ashram or I'm going off to a kibbutz or I'm going someplace where I'm just going to focus on spiritual purpose, right? But for others, they may not focus on any of those issues related to spiritual purpose until they're, far down the road with their work lives. And so it's really important to give people the tools and then based on context. If you are, I used to be on the board of a nonprofit, the job counseling with the homeless in Los Angeles. You don't ask somebody who's homeless what their purpose in life is. Like that just doesn't happen. They're focused on like that lower rung of Maslow's hierarchy. Like I've got to get stable. Like you've got to help me to have a stable life so I can then think about it. There's always something they want more in life that you want to explore those things, but typically it's got to be very situational. So work, it's the same thing with work is some people want purpose in their work. It's like, I'm not going to work without feeling like the mission of this organization aligns with my personal mission. And others just want to show up and get a paycheck and go home.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because, Chris, if I was homeless and somebody said, what's your purpose? I'd be, well, my purpose is to be homeless so I can create a job for somebody that's going to help the homeless. I mean, that's kind of how my mind.
My purpose is to find another piece of cardboard.
Yeah. I mean,
that's survival.
But there is like even somebody that's at the lower range, or Maslow's, they are valued because somebody is, there's a caretaker that's involved that's creating purpose for somebody else. So I think it's all kind of interconnected. I mean,
it is, but what we're trying to say is, look, we want all humans to feel like they can do the journey.
Yeah.
That even if it's a decision, right, whether you want to explore spiritual purpose or meaning in your work or any of those sorts of things, I'm just pointing out there's a lot of people don't have that luxury. Like it's just not a luxury. So if all, you grew up in an inner city and all you see on the street corners are drug dealers, that's the only jobs you see. You don't have a lot of choice. Like you can't be where you can't see. So you don't have a lot of choice. So we can envision what it's like when somebody has all the right pieces in their lives, and that's wonderful. But a lot of people have missing pieces. We need to, my mantra, it's the tagline in my book is no human left behind. Because if we can design for the people that don't have that luxury and we can give them the tools and the opportunities or empower them to have those opportunities and use those tools, then we're not going to leave any human behind, especially in the age of AI.
Yeah. Well, speaking of pieces and AI, for some reason, I just had this crazy idea that the AI for the homeless.
There are tools.
Go on beyond that. Yeah. I'm just kidding around
people
there.
People are homeless.
Yeah. So you say mindset and AI is the winning combo, right? But you need skills to back that up.
Yeah.
You have this idea of this. We talked about the stool when we first came in of making the stool, this 3-legged stool of transformational change. Mindset, skill sets, and tool sets. What does that look like? What do those pieces look like? And how will that prepare you for AI's impact on our daily lives?
So I'm going to do it in the reverse. We'll start with tool set. I'll work our way up. So one of the reasons that we started off talking about this toxic narrative around that you have AI coworkers or AI employees, which is just more marketing BS, is that if we don't think of it as tools and we start to elevate all these tools, we're going to diminish humans. And we're going to lose track of the narrative. And we're going to be you're going to be saying, oh yeah, we have to call our AI assistant or we have to call our AI boss into the Zoom call. Ooh, humans have lost. They're gone, right? Yeah. So Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, got on stage, CES, January 2025. And he said, oh, not only are you going to have these AI employees, but the IT department's going to manage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right.
The new for AI.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Wrong narrative. So, but the whole idea is that it's a tool set. And so what we want to do is we want to empower everybody that can be empowered with this tool set. And as you say, I mean, it's eventually going to have a lot of smarts, but if we keep on elevating that tool set and we don't think of it as tools, then what we're going to do is we're going to start to just replace humans in our mind, not just in by fact. And so what we need to do is first off, think of it as a tool set and then think of all the different ways it can be applied and help people to use the tool set, to learn the tool set, to learn skills. We have the potential to enter into a golden age where people just learn tools, learn skills with that tool set, right? But you have to keep on learning skills because the skills of tomorrow are going to be very, very different. There's actually 2 different categories of skills. The ones that are based on bodies of information, those are going to change constantly. So the baseline skills of like being a problem solver, or being adaptive or creative or having empathy, those will carry us
critical judgment
far into the future. So the tool set is to empower us to be able to develop the skill set and solve problems. But the mindset is really where I encourage people to be. So if your mindset is that you are a problem solver, if your mindset is that you want to empower others, if your mindset is that you are a team guide that is all about helping others to find their North Star, their Southern Cross, and then empower them to be able to achieve that, that mindset will carry you through into the future. But if your mindset is, you know what, I'm not a growing person. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm not going to learn anything. Then what is very likely is in many, many jobs, not all jobs, the trades are still pretty much what the trades are all the time. Plumbers and electricians sure have new tools, but they're still fixing electric wires and plumbing. But a lot of other jobs are going to change. So your mindset has to be that I am proactive. I am a growing person. I have a growth mindset and I'm going to continually be adaptive because that's what's going to allow me to develop the skills that I need to leverage these tools.
Yeah. You create the thought, you create the reality of your thoughts and power.
I think it comes down to, Chris, I mean, I'm boiling it down into 2 sectors. You're either going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi or you're going to be a stormtrooper. I mean, that's...
Oh, no. You're either going to be, or Jedi Knight. Jedi Knight or
Yeah.
Well, right. But if he's talking about mentorship, right? I mean, a Jedi, Obi-Wan. I mean, Obi-Wan was a Jedi.
Yeah. So, yeah, but you can be both. You can be Obi-Wan and Luke, because you're going to keep changing content, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to know everything. You're never going to be, even Obi-Wan himself admitted, you got to learn some stuff too.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. Yeah.
I do too. Well, we got to elevate you from being a stormtrooper, Chris. I mean, it's it is.
Now, the stormtroopers will all be AI. Sorry, they'll all be.
Oh, that's true. They will.
Like the stormtroopers, that's all marketing. Yeah.
It is. It is a market.
They're really nice guys.
Although AIs will be better shot than stormtroopers.
That's right. Yeah,
exactly.
Those guys bumped into walls and couldn't shoot straight and everything else. So, Gary, you had Nicole Bradford, or we had Nicole Bradford on our show, who I believe you know from Singularity.
Great friend.
She runs the Sherm podcast. She mentioned, I mean, this was fascinating to us because she mentioned we used to be like 20% ideation, 80% execution, and now ideas are being instantly coded in meetings. She brought up this story about how it was instantly coded in a meeting. It was amazing. And she says, we're going now from a 20% execution, 80% ideation world to the opposite. We're flipping that script to maybe it's 80% ideation, 20% execution. So do you agree with that? Do you think we're flipping the script on the future of work?
So first off, I love Nicole. She's brilliant on these things. And I think that's a wonderful construct. It's a wonderful way to think about it.
Yeah.
And I'd say that there's many jobs, many work roles where that will be possible, but there's also still lots of very execution oriented work roles. So, however, what I encourage is even for people that have primarily execution oriented work roles today, I did a whole series in my newsletter on LinkedIn on Ideation. So we all like to coin words, but I said Ideation. It's like, look, far too much of the narrative around a lot of generative AI and these tools is around productivity. I used to take 10, you used to do 10 tasks, and now I only do 2 tasks. And so I won back 5 minutes a day or something like that, right? And the industrial era model of productivity is, no, I want you to just keep working harder. And every time you can figure out how to do something faster, I want you to do more work. And so with Ideation, what I said is, well, no, wait a minute. Why don't we, instead of them thinking of just trying to improve our productivity, which is a zero-sum game, it's like your boss is never going to think that you're productive. Never. But instead, we think of it as tools to empower the ideation, like coming up with completely new ways to approach problems. And so I totally agree with Nicole's mindset that this is where we need to go. And the more we think of these tools as helping us to come up with a range of different thoughts, approaches, alternatives, scenarios, strategies that we might not have thought of before, 8 of them are going to suck, but 2 of them could be really good.
Yeah.
It solves the blank page problem. If you're staring at a blank page, you don't know how to write that report or generate that PowerPoint deck. Yeah. And suddenly, oh, wait a minute, I can just give a problem to this software and I can say, give me 5 different ways to approach it. And we can do that as teams. I do this all the time in team meetings. We've got, the chatbot that's doing the team note taking. And then I ask it, what are 5 different, not things we need to do to follow up? What are 5 different ways we should be solving problems different? And 4 of them suck, but one of them, hey, nobody thought of that one. That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. There's really no writer's block anymore.
Yeah.
You move forward or idea block.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. That's really good. Yeah.
So where are you, Mike, with your time?
I love Gary. I think we should push it a little bit because
I was just wondering.
This is, I think the audience is really going to relate to this. I think one of the major reasons, because everybody is in such a flux, Gary, and we want to be, respectful of your time too, but people are in such a flux, and we talk about this and we talk about, but it's got to come from the higher ups and, the lower ups are trying to figure out, do I even have a job tomorrow? I mean, what's next? What's next? You said change the narrative. Chris and I are in the film business, and we're always doing films on narratives and trying to change narratives, but people have to adopt the narrative. How do we get people to adopt the narrative?
Well, I think, let me just piggyback on that a little bit, Mike. I think one of the things that I like about Gary says, and I'm curious about that narrative, is the idea of And I know you're with Singularity, and that's our good friend Salim Ismail is with OpenXO and all that, and exponential organizations and all that. We had him on, and he was terrific.
He was great.
And, it's organizations as communities, and all that stuff. But we've all been around a lot of corporations, and there's a reality to it. Corporations are not exactly communities. There's no kumbaya there. So along with Mike's question, how can companies become communities now incorporating AI versus the downside, the dystopian side of AI automation agencies?
Yeah. Did you just use my question, Chris? Did you just use it?
I hijacked it.
Mike,
I just thought it was a little lame.
So
I gave you a point on one. I gave you a point. I said, great question. No, it's a great question. I just had it curious about how communities played in here.
Yeah. I don't have to broker the conversation between you, right?
I know you don't.
No, every guest does, Gary.
No, it's
okay,
fine.
all right, that's fine. No, that's
you
good.
just get around. It's fine.
No, that's good. That's good. We'll solve all the problems collaboratively.
Yeah, your problems
so again, I'm going to link the two, right? So there's agency, there's what people do individually, and there's what an organization can be. So let's wave our magic wand and let's envision that organization of the future, and let's say how it would need to operate, right? So let's just say I'm right, and let's say that corporate hierarchy, that's going to be around for a long time, but some organizations are experimenting with really, really different ways to be able to organize humans. There's lots of very inspirational examples. If you look at Spotify, Spotify is basically just a bunch of tag teams. That's what Spotify is, a bunch of tag teams. And very loose organization, but they have very, very specific work roles, and the teams are trying to solve different problems, but they have an operating system that helps them to be able to coordinate. So there's some really inspirational examples of what I'm talking about, this WorkNet model. But let's just say we wave our magic wand and we're saying, okay, how can an organization get from what it is today with this very strong hierarchy to the future? So there's two models. One of them is, my friend John Hagel says, you can never innovate in the center. You got to change something at the edge.
Yeah.
So if you're a worker and you're in the core of the organization, are they going to change their processes? Probably not, right? I mean, how often does an organization, like when Bill Gates said, it's the internet, and Microsoft had to completely pivot on a dime? How often does that happen? It doesn't happen very often, right? Yeah. So what I'd say to people who are working, if you're working in the core of an organization, you've got all these standard processes. Sure, you can try to make it as innovative as possible. But John would say, no, you kind of got to go to the edge. Work in a department, new department, a newly acquired company, something that, takes you out of the core and you can be in a place where you can be more innovative.
Yeah.
But there are other models where people say, no, you can change the entire organization. You can change the culture. There's a book called Culture Transformation that's written by the Institute for Corporate Effectiveness. And they did a study and they found there's 18 different sort of steps of successful organizations that transform. It can be done, but only 15% of the organizations that start these transformations ever do them successfully. 15%. So you got to know, if you're in a big organization, unless you get this tremendous buy-in by the people who lead the organization, that it is going to go through this transformation. You just got to know you could be banging your head against the wall for a while before the organization, you start to see some of these change. And so in the age of AI, you're going to see bifurcation. You're going to see in traditional industries, you're probably going to see it a lot in financial services. You're definitely going to see it in government, monopoly, government sanctioned monopolies, often telecommunications. These are organizations that don't change a lot. They don't have a lot of incentives to change a lot. And so it's going to be really hard to see them going from the hierarchical model to something that's looser. But there's a lot of other types of organizations, and especially, as I was saying, ones that have been around for less than 5 years, agencies that are going to experiment. There's an huge experimentation job in the UK, 4-day work week. Virtually every company that experimented with it is doing it. Thousands of companies experimented. Right. Cool. And so what ends up happening is you've got to find the place where the light is good. You lost your keys over here. It's dark over there. No, wait a minute. It's not going to work well in this organization, but in this organization, if I want this flexibility, I may have to change that context because I need to have the place where I can be part of that experiment. So tell people you got to be proactive. I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow. What I'm saying is figure out what you need, those 6 W's in your work. Figure out to your point, Michael, like what the connection with purpose is, and in one context, the purpose of that organization and your work, and decide, do you feel you can get what you need, or do you need to have the agency to go elsewhere? Because there are going to be companies that are going to say, hey, you know what? We're all about wiping out human jobs. The CEO of Klarna, which is a company that just went public in the Nordic region, he basically has said he's doing everything he can to just use AI. Well, it's a marketing statement. If you go on his website, there's lots of job openings. So there are companies that have these huge pressures from their shareholders. They're going to be doing as efficient work as they possibly can, and they're going to use much more maybe more technologies than they're going to use humans if they can. That may not be the right organization. So just make sure you've got this good matchup with its
I don't think a matchup with a company that's going all, on AI would be, hey, sign me up for that job.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you had a job, it's probably short term. Yeah.
What's fabulous.
Chris, I'm going to give you the last question, Chris, because we do have to wrap.
Last question. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we'll do the one piece of advice question.
Oh, that's good.
Always great. So, Gary, before we go, if you had one piece of advice for anyone freaking out about AI in the future of work, what would that be?
I'm going to give two facets to one piece of advice. All
right.
The headline is agency. The headline is don't just sit there. Is you have to have agency. Is if you're just sitting there waiting for, to get your pink slip from an AI chatbot, which is going to happen more and more, then you're like a deer in the headlights, right? So if you don't have agency, if you're not taking action, right? So what kind of action should you take? 2 steps. One is you've got to have that North Star Southern Cross. You've always got to be thinking about that next step, that thing that's drawing you forward, that sort of thing. And then the other is whatever is appropriate for your work role, learn the baseline of the tools. 30 years ago, I was starting Interactive Week. I was telling people, you kind of better learn email, and you better learn this thing called a web browser. And people would say, why? I'd say, well, you're going to be emailing your grandmother eventually. I'd say, you're kidding me. That's never going to happen. Right. Yeah. And so it's the same thing with the AI tools is you're going to be leveraging these tools. You're going to be scheduling meetings. You're going to be writing things with them. You're going to be, and you shouldn't be afraid of them. They're just the same way they use Microsoft Word. You're going to be using these tools to solve different problems, and they're going to get infused so deeply into a lot of the applications you use. They already are with many of the applications that you use. But you just need better. You need to have sort of this baseline capacity for it. And so that's the way I'd sort of put the final word together is of agency, and it's got to be this combination of where you want to go, but then also learn something of the tool set so that you just feel like you're not being left behind.
Learn how AI can now write your emails.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They all sound the same, but sure.
Exactly.
You want a lot of boring emails knocked out? Go for it.
I just very formal to Grandma. Hello, Grandma. This is
exactly.
And then we got recording stop.
I don't know what happened.
Oh, that was over my really good line.
I know it was. It was. I think AI.
You just kind of hit me right there. You go.
Okay. No, the AI software will solve it in post.
Exactly. I'll re-record that line.
Power. Gary, this has been absolutely mind blowing. I got to tell you. I mean, when Chris said you were coming on the show, I was super excited. And you
love everybody from Singularity University. They're all.
It's so
all on the same page.
Yeah, it's just inspirational. It's a wealth of knowledge. You give people practical, tactical, like, okay, this is what I need to be prepared for. I love the what's next. Like be in the position and think, okay, well, what's next? What's next? What's next? It's having that proactive mindset that they taught us in the military is don't get comfortable with the mission because plans change.
And if you want to know what's next, we highly recommend Gary's book, The Next Rules of Work.
That was good.
Find out what's next and then what's next.
Yeah. Where can they find you, Gary? Where can people find you?
LinkedIn is kind of the place. It's my watering hole. It's my digital home. So I got a weekly newsletter, and that's where my courses are. So always bring me there.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, we want to thank everybody for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe, share, and possibly start working on your 3-legged stool, as Gary said. Mindsets, your skills.
Yeah. Tools. does not wait for anybody, right, Chris? We talk about that, but
no, the future does not wait for anybody, but it does send reminders like this podcast.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I do like that. That's really good. So until next time, stay human, stay adaptable,
and stay human.
Thanks, Gary, for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. It was awesome.
Are we kidding? Thought you had to go.
Yeah, I have like 5 minutes where I can wrap up on this one. So
He was good. Was he great?
Oh, I thought Gary was awesome. I think he's right in the sense that, we got to talk about AI as a tool and not like an employee. Like, hey, I'm just going to have AI employees. I think he's right. It is a software. And we kind of ignore that fact. I think we talk about it as another entity.
Keeps talking about back and forth is how do you manage all this stuff? Like he kept saying, I wrote stuff down like you need to know what's next and what's next and what's next. One thing.
Yeah.
Then he said, you've got to learn a tool set, learn a new tool set, learn a skill set, learn a new skill set. You got to keep going. Where is that? And AI is part of that. Where is that ability for people to go, I've accomplished this, whether I think, was that the clarity tool you brought up?
No, I actually brought up the purpose tool.
Purpose tool. Oh, the purpose tool. Okay. So that was a purpose tool.
Yeah.
So all of those things that you brought up, it's kind of like, as we said before, your manager's not going to do that for you. HR's not going to do that for you. Leadership's doesn't have time to keep up with all of those P's, or all those W's. You need something that you can scale that keeps, this is what's next for me. And like we always talk about plus ones.
Yeah. The plus ones.
It's like, plus one. Oh, I did a plus one. Oh, I did a plus one, something that manages that, because otherwise I think with how fast things moving in on us, how chaotic, how disruptive it is, you can get pretty overwhelmed.
I love that idea of having walking in every day and you have a plus one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how you gamify it though. And you know what?
Exactly.
What if you gamified it to the point where, and I thought about this the other day, Chris, and I know we're just kind of ruminating on this thing, but
bingo. It should be gamified. It's got to be, and we always make things fun.
Yeah, but imagine if you hit certain milestones in your plus ones, and that triggered a bonus, because you're elevating you're elevating your employees, right? So you're taking, like, in the military, we give you what we call a disability rating because we use you all up, right? We get you whole and then we use you all up, and so you get 100% disability rating because we used everything that you originally gave us.
Yeah,
right?
we've taken you to 100%. Now you have 100% disability rating.
Yeah, exactly. So, but imagine if you flip that script and said, wait a second, no, I'm going to take this raw talent, which I believe is amazing, but I'm going to give you plus ones every day, and I'm going to elevate your ability to be a superhuman. I'm going to create a premier human, because that's going to take my company to the next level. And every time you hit these different milestones, that triggers a bonus, because I'm getting a better employee. I don't have to hire somebody new. You keep hitting these milestones.
Oh, I had a different idea. I thought it was, because I don't know if they'll actually, the bonus, gamified bonus is, let's say there's challenges that I meet that take me out of fear of doing something, or a limitation that I had for myself. I couldn't do it. And the points that you get for doing that take you from, different levels.
No, I think we're
actually
talking
go to a different, exactly. So you go to a different level in the gamification of it. It's a tricky thing because people may go, well, I'm still at one. I don't know,
Well, but you know what? That's a coaching moment. That's where your mentor comes alongside and says, hey, listen, we're still, let me teach you how to turn on the lightsaber.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think it's obviously you're below the line on this, on the VUCA line. So where you're at in this. I don't know.
But it could be like that. You're right with the VUCA line. You come in the morning and you say, how do you feel?
Yeah.
Powerless, victim, creator. And, you can cheat the system, but maybe if you just go, this is where we have to figure out, like, is this autonomous or is this actually in the database, because you don't want in the database like, well, you came in 90 days, 96 days last quarter where you were powerless. It's like, and you felt like you were, and you were negative. And,
but I think that'd be good for you to know as a human.
Oh, exactly. So it's good for you to know.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a way that but I love the idea of, I don't exactly know how.
We'll figure that out, but I don't know that we'll air this part. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll air this part when the company hits $1 billion and we'll let people know.
No, what we'll do is we'll go to our ChatGPT and ask about this concept, which is a good idea. How to gamify this idea. And it'll probably say, well, it could be like, this. Maybe you do it in an abstract way where you're
Yeah. Who knows? That's good. Well, it's all our listeners. You guys, you see what happens after we go behind the scenes. So keep.
I love these guys that talk about the future of work. Gary Hamel was good. I was going to ask him about Gary Hamel's thing, and then but I wanted to do that last question. Because Gary Hamel was also terrific. Idea of how he hire appliances. He made that into one of these communities too.
Yeah,
but it's rare.
It is rare.
He had a handful of companies that he did it with.
Yeah, so good. Well,
most
guys,
are not hierarchies.
No,
hierarchies.
They are still hierarchies. Well, keep subscribing, keep plugging in, keep being amazing.
Right.
Be curious,
and stay curious.
Yeah.
Be powerful and
stay human.
All right. Till next.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, either on Spotify, Podbean. Leave us a review there as well.
Share this episode with your friends, and check out the Rise of Humanness on YouTube for bonus clips.
Visit our Facebook community, our website, www.itsvukamax.com. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
The rise of humanness in the age of AI. It's a podcast with Chris and Mike. The rise of